Welcome to the Starter Girlz podcast, the show dedicated to the Starter Girl. She's an achiever, she's a creator, she's a magic maker, she's a dreamer, and she is doing all the things. I'm your host, Jennifer Loehding, and welcome to this episode. Welcome to another episode of the Starter Girlz podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Loehding, and we are so glad that you are here today, wherever you are tuning in from. We're happy to have you. Excited about my guest today. As a formal financial advisor and mortgage advisor, she's had countless conversations with women, specifically divorced, widowed, and single women, who felt overwhelmed, embarrassed, and frustrated when it came to their finances, investing, and money. So she decided to pursue her dream of financial coaching for women. She says she's a teacher at heart and loves to educate and empower women with money smarts. She's a certified executive coach, life coach. She holds a real estate broker's license, and she's a published author of 4 books. So welcome to the show, Patti Handy. We are so excited to have you here today.
Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate you having me.
It's going to be so much fun. I'm excited to chat with you and dive into this.
Absolutely. I'm ready.
Yeah. So I know I shared this with you, and I always kind of like to reiterate this. Sometimes I say it in the opening. Sometimes I say it when you guys come on. This whole show, I say is about the Starter Girl. And so, when I started this 4 years ago, I guess 2019, we're going on 5 years ago, another girlfriend of mine, we created this show to empower women. And so we've never really strayed from what this was all about, is empowering women, but it's even taken a bigger message. And when we talk about empower women, it's how do we help them be effective in all the areas of their lives. So it's not just about health and well-being, body and mind. It's about relationships, about our career, and it's also about our financial position. And so this is why I'm excited to have you here, Patti, because I think this is kind of a subject that women kind of get a lot of times sort of like about, right? Like they kind of, I do. I get kind of about it. So I'm excited to chat with you and really dive into this. And hopefully when we're done, those listening to this can walk away with some tidbits of information, some tips, something that will help put them in the right direction.
Yeah, sounds great. And yes, you're right. That conversation of money is always one that people become uncomfortable with. It's not something that we talk about openly. We'll talk about our sex life and our husbands and our kids and whatever else is happening at work, all the conversations, right? But when it comes to money, it's like they zip it. They just don't want to, because it's uncomfortable, and they're just, like you had mentioned, a lot of embarrassment and shame. And I saw a lot of that with women that I spoke to over, the last few decades. And it's a very common theme. And I think once women just realize we're all in this together, and there's so many of us experiencing the same thing, that it's okay to be vulnerable and to share, I don't really understand this stuff. I need some help with it. And it's okay that I need some help with it.
Yeah,
that's first and foremost.
Yeah, probably a lot of stigma around it. And I don't know, I work with women too. That's my background. I was in Mary Kay for 22 years. So I feel like I've spent most of my adult life working with women in some capacity. And I feel like there's always therapy involved when we're dealing with women, right?
Yes.
Probably men too. They just don't admit it, right? They just don't admit it. But I think there's a lot of stigma that goes with money. And for those of us, I'm in my early 50s. I think, we grew up with baby boomers as parents. And so we sort of had this upbringing that, money was hard to come by and you had to work hard. And although we have great, work ethic and all those things that go with that, right? Like we were taught things. I think there are stigmas that we also developed around money too. I know me personally, I always joke about it. I heard, money doesn't grow on trees. And I've been very careful when I had kids to not repeat, that saying money doesn't grow on trees, mindset, because I think you probably can talk about this, about how, whatever we think our association is with that, we sort of kind of keep playing that out. We keep living that out over and over and over.
Yeah, you hit it on the nail there. Exactly. We have this, well, first of all, we have ancestral trauma when it comes to money. We are actually carrying things within our DNA from our, great grandparents, and we don't even know what they experienced, but we have that in us. And so part of our healing is unraveling that, understanding that, and then reprogramming that. The other piece is the mindset. Like you said, we grew up hearing things from our parents, and we were little open brains. From birth to about age 8, we were just absorbing everything as reality. So when we heard mom or dad or grandparents, aunts, uncles, whoever speak, And if they spoke, like you said, money doesn't grow on trees, or rich people are greedy, and rich people only get rich by hurting other people, and some of that lack and scarcity mindset, that fear-based mindset, you're just taking that all in. So that, as an adult, is kind of running in the background in your subconscious programming, and that is how you are living out today. And you may not even realize it, but it's like we're programmed to struggle. We are addicted to stress. We are programmed to grind and hustle. And it's when we sort of step back and we take a breath and we realize that isn't necessary for success. And by the way, what is your definition of success? It shouldn't just be, money. Then we can kind of unravel all that, reprogram it. And that's a very long conversation and a very big topic, but it should help you feel better and give yourself more grace, just knowing that this isn't all about what you're doing wrong, or that, you're not good with money. And no, this is just about part of what's happening in our DNA, and we're dealing with that.
Yeah, I never heard that. I mean, like, I knew about the belief system, and it's interesting because, I've talked about this even in my journey, because I work with women a lot on this, and I don't get into the financial part of it as much. I mean, I talk about that because I do believe how we do one thing is how we do all things. And I think that when we have poor belief systems, and I say poor because we all have poor belief systems that we have to work through. And
Sure.
I think that when we have them, they manifest very differently in the different domains of our lives. And so I, often talk about my money stuff. And, for even my husband, I've been married 28 years, and for a good, for many years of our marriage, I had debt that I had brought in and carried over. And a lot of it wasn't because I didn't know how to budget a checkbook or balance. I knew how to do all that stuff. Some of it was just poor choices I was making. But here's what's interesting. And I've since paid that off, which is a really good thing. So I can openly talk about this because I did take ownership of it and I did pay it off.
Good for
But
you.
it was manifesting very differently in the domains of my life. And what I mean by that is, in my business, I was risk adverse, meaning I didn't like to spend money. I was very like, oh my God, I don't want to do that because what if it fails? I don't want to put, put my money into that if that happens. But in my personal life, I was like, whatever I want it, I'm going to get it. Same belief system was wrapped around the money, but they were showing up very different in those two domains of my life. And I realized, for me personally, when I went through my stories, probably one of many where people go in and they really start, going introspective and trying to hone into why are they making a lot of poor choices in their lives, right? And I just started realizing that a lot of these same core beliefs were just really showing up and playing out very adversely in my life. And so I think you said something when you start realizing that we get past the shame, that we realize it's not our fault, but we do have to take ownership. We do have to recognize that, yes, this is an issue and it's showing up, and it's my duty to fix it. Get on the whatever I need to do to work, move past it.
Yeah. And I think it's also, not only is it important for us to move past it in our lives today, but once we heal that, once we are, have different thoughts, which create different, outcomes in our life, we're passing that on to our kids and their kids. So if, legacy, and everyone wants, a favorable, legacy, that's your why. When you are frustrated, it's like, it's too much work to deal with this, and it's just easier to do, fall back in our own, comfortable, familiar place. That why of, what, I don't want my kids to live like this. I don't want this legacy to be of fear and confusion and embarrassment and shame and whatever other toxic thoughts. I want them to be empowered. I want them to know that there's abundance and possibilities and opportunities everywhere. And yes, you've got to be mindful of your money. You've got to be respectful of your money. And that is just, like you said, taking ownership of that, learning to invest, learning to manage your credit, learning to manage your debt, and all the pieces of managing money is something that you've got to do proactively. You just can't sit back and let that just happen. But it's also okay to acknowledge that, if this has not been your strong suit, if this isn't something that you feel comfortable with or familiar with, this can be learned. The academics of investing and money and all this money management stuff, this can be very easily learned, and it's far simpler than most people think. I think that the society as a whole and the industry as a whole has made it more complicated than it needs to be. It really is, once you learn it, it is simpler than you realize. It's the money mindset piece and reprogramming those thoughts. That's probably the harder piece of it, because
Right.
that's the foundation, and that's playing in our, like I said, the subconscious mind. And until we get a, grip on that, we're going to fall back into our old, familiar, safe,
Mhm.
habits. And that's why you see lotto winners who come into, millions or large amounts of money in a very short period of time. They're back to where they were, because subconsciously that wasn't familiar, that wasn't safe for them. And as crazy as it sounds, they sort of subconsciously sabotage that word didn't want to come out quickly. And they're back to where they were, unless they got help from a financial advisor or, a CPA or whoever can help them, guide them. Um, so yeah, there's so much behind that. And I want to share one thing that I heard recently that was really quite interesting. There was a study done with mice, and they put them into this container, and they shot in the smell of cherry blossom. And at the same time that they did this, they shocked their paws. And they did this several times. So the mice would, connect the smell of this cherry blossom to this pain, right?
Mm.
Then they would take the grandchildren, if you will, of the mice, two generations down, and they would put them in this container and put the cherry blossom in. They would not shock their paws, but they responded like they were shocked. So
Wow.
that's part of that kind of supporting information that, this DNA, this um, ancestral trauma is brought down to us unknowingly. And it was very fascinating. And to unravel that and unpack all that, and to acknowledge it and be mindful of that. I mean, that's some big, deep work. But once you recognize it and you're aware of it, and you realize, okay, this is not just me thinking, this, and this. It's about some stuff that's in me that's playing a part here. Then there's a little bit more grace and a little bit more, okay, you know what? This is okay. I'm going to be on this journey now to figure this out and change my ways, because I want my kids or grandkids to have a more peaceful life, a life of not necessarily ease. Of course, we want that for them, but the strength and the resilience and the wisdom to know how to navigate this in life.
No, I agree with you. I think the money mindset, because I think when we talk about mindset, really, I mean, that's a topic we could probably talk about forever, because I think
Yeah.
you and I both share that in our work. It's important in really everything we do. And so as I'm listening to you talk about the money part, I'm also thinking in my mind about people when they start exercise programs, when they want, it's the same thing, they
100%.
they do I was in the fitness arena for a very long time. I taught aerobics for many years, was a runner, a marathon runner, and did a bunch of stuff in that area. But it's the same kind of mindset in there as well. When these people go in and they trade off, they decide, I'm going to go and get physically fit, and they don't really have the right mindset going in. They're going in for the short-term gain of losing weight, but they don't really address all these other issues. So they just continually go in this yo-yo thing of going, quitting, going, quitting. I often joke about it. I mean, I have been at the same gym, Patty, no kidding, for 12 years. I have not wasted a gym membership. I have never wasted a gym membership. I went from one gym 4 years, moved to the next one. So I have been at a gym for 16 years, and that's how I operate. And so I think, what you're talking about here is so important, because it's not just about getting your money right for the legacy, right? It's about getting it right for you too. It's about a peace of mind and freedom for yourself when you are living in balance. And I'm just going to say balance, in harmony, because you're doing things from a place of a healthy place and not a reactionary place. You know what I mean? Being reactive to things.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think that, yes, we as women especially, we have a hard time saying, you know what, I deserve to be happy. I deserve to be healthy. I am worthy of financial peace. I am worthy of a life of ease. And those words, deserve and worth, sometimes they get stuck in our mouth. They just, for whatever reason. And I think that we've got to break through that. And you mentioned the other parts of our life. 100%, our wealth and our health are are, such a co-creation. And I often will use that analogy when we're talking about budget. People don't like the word budget or feeling constrained. It's like being on a diet where you feel like you're constrained, you can't eat certain things. And I turn it around and I say, it's not necessarily constricting you. It's about you being empowered to make choices that will make you feel good. After you eat something that isn't great for you, you don't feel good. You don't feel as healthy and strong and vibrant as you'd like. So maybe we should rethink what you're putting in your mouth, not saying, oh, you've got to count calories and you've got to do this. And I'm like you, I've been a gym goer for 40 years and I, fitness is a huge part for me, and you'll never see me counting calories. That will never happen. And that isn't the answer. So, I'm mindful of what I put in my body because I want to feel good, because I want to feel good, not because I'm trying to impress, anybody else. And same thing with your money. It's not about, oh, you can't buy your lattes in the morning, or, oh, you shouldn't be spending money on that. It's about, okay, I want financial freedom. I want to retire by this age. I want to travel at this age. I want to, what do I want? I want to live, this, down payment for my kid's house, whatever it is you want for life. That's your driving force. That's why you're doing these things. It's not to, impress the neighbors, and those are trying to create wealth because they're trying to keep up with the Joneses or to impress other people. That's where it becomes dangerous. I mean, you've lost the game if that's where you're coming from. You've lost the game of success and wealth creation.
So let's talk a little bit about investing, because this is foreign. I mean, even for me, my husband has all that stuff set up. So I'm like, I know what we have, but like, I don't, that's not my thing. But so there's probably going to be more women in here right now. They're going to be listening to this and going, what do we do with this? So maybe tell us, where do you start with this when you talk about investing?
Yeah. So you start where you are today. Okay, so very simplistically, you got to really get a good handle on what's going on today. So cash flow, what is coming in, what's going out? Are you positive every month? Are you negative every month? What does that look like? What does your net worth look like? So if you own a home, the home is your asset, the mortgage is your liability. So the difference is your equity in the house. That's part of your net worth. Your retirement accounts, your brokerage accounts. So what you have as far as net worth is important to understand. And then the cash flow. If you're positive every month and you really take a good look at what you're spending, let's look at investing that. So where do I invest that? Where do I start? So very simplistically, a very great place to start is in an index fund. An index fund is like a mutual fund. However, it is an index that is more passively managed by managers, the portfolio managers that work at these funds. And so the expense ratios are less, which means that the money in your pocket is more. It's less costly to own this fund. And so there's more money in your pocket at the end. An index fund, like an S&P 500 index fund, is a great fund because it invests in 500 companies, the S&P 500. It's very diversified. You're not investing in one particular, company. If you're starting out from scratch and investing is brand new to you, I personally would not recommend, looking at one particular company. There's a lot of risk investing in one company. I like to say stay diversified. That's why the S&P 500 index fund is a great fund to look at. Let me just say, disclosure, I'm not giving financial advice here. You need to do your own due diligence and do your own homework. But that's a great place to look at to begin investing.
Entrepreneurs, are you ready to level up your leadership skills? Tune in now for an exclusive offer designed just for you.
This is my time.
Did you know 63% of consumers prefer businesses aligned with their values? Recognizing your core values isn't just vital for business growth, it's the bedrock of effective leadership. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or an aspiring creator, identifying your core values is a key step in constructing the framework of a successful leader, enabling you to lead authentically, expand your business, and live life on your terms.
Never settle, don't play. Putting the kettle to flame. I go 100 all day. Foot on the pedal, no brakes. 10, 9, paid all my dues, waited in line. 8, 7.
Are you ready to access tools to kickstart your leadership journey? Unlock a treasure trove of insights and get your free resources at www.linktree/Jennifer Loehding. Take that crucial first step toward realizing your leadership aspirations and elevate your leadership game today.
Ready to shine.
There's countless funds out there. There's many, many hundreds of mutual funds, index funds. There's various sectors. If you like energy, if you like technology, if you like healthcare, and that's where it can become overwhelming. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't know. Tell me where to go. I have no idea. Well, these funds, like a total market index fund or the S&P 500, these are all diversified for you. If you are in a 401k with your company, they have target date funds, which means that you pick a target date based on when you're going to retire, and they will automatically diversify for you, and they will automatically rebalance for you as time progresses, which means they'll sell out of equities and buy into bonds, which is more conservative as you get older. So if you're within a 401k, I would say look at the target date fund of what year you're going to retire and start there. But stay within index funds. Again, they're less expensive. If you go to a Fidelity or a Vanguard or a Schwab website, there is tons of great information on there. You can read that. There's articles. Sometimes they have videos. The funds will, you can jump into the S&P 500 index fund, and it'll tell you what the holdings are, like what companies are in there, what percentage, and you can see the performance over the last 10 years, some years up, some years down. You can do a lot of that analysis yourself. It's really quite easy. And once you can, you pick a few funds, you're good. You don't need to be invested in 20 funds. You don't need to be invested in all these various products. Keep it simple. And I'm going to suggest that you keep it all in one place. I think it's easier to manage if you have it all in one location versus having some at Fidelity, some at Vanguard, some at Schwab, some at, wherever. Have it within one place. And even if you're working with a financial advisor, that's fantastic. If you have an advisor and they're doing a lot of tax strategies for you and they're very mindful of, your situation personally, having this knowledge yourself is going to empower you more to ask the questions of the advisor. And when they're talking to you about certain things that they're doing as far as investing, you'll understand it more. So don't just think, oh, my advisor takes care of that. No one cares more about your money than you do. You need to be aware of what you have, where it's going, why they're investing in that, what tax strategies are they doing for you. Are you maxing out your 401k? Are you maxing out your Roth contributions or your regular IRA contributions? Are you taking advantage of everything that you can tax-wise to pay the least amount of tax, legally, of course, and just, be mindful of that information so that you can understand and feel that financial confidence, which brings you that peace of mind.
I was writing things down as you were talking. That's probably why you saw me looking up and down. I was writing some things down in here. Good stuff, Patti. Thank you for sharing all of that. I know that for some, this is going to be, I think but I think there will be some that this will be extremely beneficial for. I do want to ask you another question, because I know one of the things that I mentioned in the bio was, work you specifically having conversations with divorced women, widow women. This seems to be, kind of an area, because especially for, women who have been married for a long time, or maybe like in my case, like where the husband pretty much takes care of all that. I do ask a lot of questions. I have been informed. I do ask lots of questions, but I would love to know from you, for somebody kind of starting over. I mean, or just maybe they're in that space now and they're like, okay, what should I do at this point? Any recommendations you could offer them, or maybe just a starting point?
Yeah, I would first of all give yourself some grace again, and just know that this is, it's okay that you're learning and you're on this journey. Don't beat yourself up or think that you're, less than because you don't have this information. If you're newly divorced or newly, your spouse recently passed and you're still dealing with the trauma and the emotional grief, don't make any big financial decisions. One of the worst things you can do at the beginning when you're still in that raw kind of very vulnerable place. And I know when I went through my divorce, it was just, a black cloud for quite a while. And you can't make good decisions when you're in that state, especially with your money. Now, if you have to make a decision because there's a time constraint for whatever reason, you want to reach out to your CPA or a very trusted financial advisor or coach that that you work with. Stay off of the internet. There's so much noise online. There are some wonderful people who have great information. And there's some very talented, obviously, advisors who have great podcasts. And so listen to those, but do the homework. After you've learned about something, do the homework, research that a little farther, talk to people. Again, people who are, independent third parties who aren't going to benefit from selling you a product. If there's an insurance agent or someone who's trying to sell you an annuity or an insurance commission product, and they're telling you this is the end all be all, and you don't understand it, you need to just push pause and just not do it until you fully and completely understand something 100%. But reach out to those people that you trust and have that conversation. Your CPA is not going to benefit from selling you a product or selling you any investments. So they're going to be there to help you. So reach out to them. If you have an attorney, perhaps an estate planning attorney can help guide you in some capacities. If there's an advisor, most advisors will actually give you a complimentary free meeting, sometimes 2 free meetings, and you can sit and chat with them and just get a better understanding of whatever questions that you have, and ask lots of questions. Collect this data and take your time. Trust your gut. We as women are very intuitive, and we are, smart intuitively. We don't give ourselves enough credit for that gut check, and then just don't make any of those decisions until you are 100% comfortable with how to move forward.
Yeah, that was all very good advice, and I would agree with that on many fronts, because I think that, we don't necessarily make the best decisions when we're in a state of crisis, and so maybe just pausing. But also, I think you said something too about the getting the information and trusting your intuition, because I think if something doesn't feel right, it's okay to put the brakes on that and say, let me do a little bit of research on that and come back to that. I've always
100%,
felt like, I know that we're not always perfect at that, but I've always said that, when I've made a decision that's gone against how I really feel about something, it just never quite works out in the right way. If I'm feeling very strongly that something needs to hold for a second, we probably need to pause. Let me do some work on that and make sure that, I'm coming to this in the right frame of mind.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely super important for all of us to remember. And statistically, women are better investors than men. If you look at this on online statistics, because we don't jump in and out of things, we're more methodical. We do, just kind of take things more logically and less emotional, where I think that the men are usually trying to, beat the odds and come in and out and try to, win at the game. And we're like, no, we're not, this isn't a game. Right. This is not a game. This is our livelihood. And so, I wish I had the information in front of me to quote, but there are, if you go online and you look at women investors versus men, they are statistically actually better. So yeah.
That's pretty cool. Well, I'd love to ask you kind of just a personal question back up to the beginning, how you got into this, because sometimes I ask this and sometimes I don't. And I know in the beginning I mentioned that you were talking to women. And so I'm assuming, were you in real estate before you came into kind of the financial scene, or was there another segue that led you to that?
So right out of college, I went into corporate banking, and I was in the institutional side of corporate banking. Okay. Got married, had my son, and at 18 months old, when he was 18 months old, we went through a divorce. And I was the one in the marriage that dealt with the money. I was the financial person. My ex-husband didn't understand anything, so I took care of it all, which was great. However, with the trauma and the grief and the sadness of everything going on, and having this young little person, be under my watch full time, it was overwhelming. And I made some really, unfortunate decisions that I knew better, but I didn't at the time. And I remember this is kind of the pivotal time where I remember thinking, I'm going to somehow help women someday with this. I remember laying in a fetal position, just sobbing with the overwhelm and the grief of just everything. And I had this weird sort of download, I call it a God wink, where it was, you're going to be okay because you know how to manage your money. And it was weird because I wasn't thinking about money at the time. I was just thinking about my son and, what to do. And at that time, I'll back up a minute. I left my corporate banking job to have him. We had been trying for 5 years to get pregnant, and I finally had him with IVF. And I thought, I'm going to stay at home with my baby. I'm going to not go back to 9 to 5. He's my priority. So I had to go back and figure out what to do with work. And I didn't want to go back to a 9 to 5 and leave him all day because Dad was gone all, now, and I didn't want him to lose me. So I did real estate for a couple years, which gave me some flexibility. I didn't love it, but then I went into mortgage lending, which allowed me to work at home. I had my flexibility. It was fantastic. So I did that for many years. And then I went into financial planning, and I became a financial advisor. This was, when he was much older. and now he's an adult. So that's all good. But yeah, the path of, always wanting to help women. And during my many years as a mortgage advisor and then onto a financial advisor, I had these conversations with women, and there were, many who were just, in tears and overwhelmed and afraid. And the two biggest things were, I don't want to be a burden to my kids, and I'm afraid of running out of money. Those are the two things that I would hear over and over again. And that's what sort of launched me from, into my business now, where I left my financial advisor role and I became a financial coach. And this is sort of the path. So I'm kind of, feeding that seed that was planted, many, many years ago.
Yeah, and that's a great story, and thank you for sharing that. I do that in my other show. We talk more about the story, and so sometimes I think it's great to share, because I think we learn by helping other people, and a lot of times when we go through our own things, we can be basically a testimony and show others that, hey, your story may not be exactly the same, but I've had to walk this mess or whatever this was, and I can show you that you too can walk through what you're going through as well. And so thank you for sharing that. I think it makes a difference when people are hearing these things and knowing where you came from. And wow, what a powerful woman you are to be able to have carried that on as a single mother and be able to take care of yourself and do all those great things. I think it's awesome. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
Awesome. So real quick, I want to ask you, we'll wrap this up because I know you've got 4 books. If you want to tell us real quick a little bit about these, because I'm impressed. I'm a book author of 1 book. I'm impressed that you got 4, because I have no desire to write another one right now. The one was good. So I'm totally impressed.
Yeah, thank you. Well, they were over the course of time. The very first book I wrote was a children's book, The Feeling in My Belly of Peanut Butter and Jelly. And it's basically a book about teaching little kids about focusing on what's right in their world versus focusing on what's wrong in their world. So that's totally non-financial. That was just a cute children's book. And then when I went through my divorce, I wrote 50 Ways to Flourish After Divorce. And it was 50 things that I did, from taking up keto to, taking an art class to exercise, whatever it is I did. So there was 50 things that I did to kind of get through my rough years. And then the final 2 were money. So How to Ditch Your Allowance and Be Richer Than Your Parents. That is geared towards the high school and young adult market.
Okay.
It's financial education, very simplified, and everything is covered from investing to building your credit, dealing with debt, stresses of, your friends and the keeping up with your friends and spending and that kind of thing. And then I rewrote that book and I updated it. And that's the Money Rules 101, Master Your Money Before It Masters You. So that's my most current book, the Money Rules 101 book, which was a rewrite of the How to Ditch Your Allowance book. I've had financial planners and attorneys read it and tell me they've learned something. So although it's geared towards the young adult market, money is money. It's just very simplified language. So anybody and everybody can understand it.
Very good. All right. Well, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So Patti, this has been awesome. I know that, like I mentioned, I want to first of all tell you thank you for coming on here and being authentic and sharing your story and your wisdom and, all of your great knowledge. And I know somebody's going to find some value in this. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, maybe they want to get the books, I don't know, follow up with you, follow you, whatever they want to do, where do we want to send them?
The money, the website is probably the best place, and that's just pattihandy.com, PATTIHANDY.com. On the homepage, there is a free download. Women Soaring Solo is a financial guide, and it's part financial, and then it's part that 50 Ways to Flourish After Divorce. That's all part of that ebook, and that's complimentary. You can download that. And there's about a 30-minute masterclass you will watch after that. So that's all complimentary. If they want to have a conversation, I do offer a complimentary 30-minute discovery call, and they can book that on my website. They just go to the contact page, and the calendar is there for them to book a call with me.
Perfect. All right. Well, awesome. This has been wonderful. I'm glad we got to connect and chat. And hopefully, like I said, somebody gets, we've imparted something on somebody they can walk away and apply to their life now. If not, get the mindset right? Like we got to get this mindset right. So thank you, Patti. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah, it's been great. And to our audience, of course, we love you, appreciate you. If you enjoy the show, head over to Apple, give us a review over there. You can hit that subscribe button on YouTube so we can keep sharing all this amazing content. And as I always say, you guys take care of yourself, and be kind to one another. We will see you next time.